Hi everyone, it's Stacey. Welcome back to my channel where I bring you weekly fun, funny, entertaining, inspirational videos. I know it's been a minute since I posted my last video, but I was sick. Both Joey and I were sick over Christmas and New Year's. Luckily, we both tested negative for COVID. And then I did have my very first Mindbloom session. And then after I had that, unbeknownst to me, my mind decided that I needed to go into a little cocoon for a while. And I didn't know that was going to happen, but it was strongly coming from my mind to just take a break, take it easy, do nothing, be calm and quiet for about a week. And so I honored it. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. As promised, I am going to tell you about my experiences with my guide and the clinician. I had mentioned that I was going to be telling you about all my conversations with them, so that's going to be what this video is. And then also, I am going to tell you about my very first Mindbloom ketamine session in the later part of this video. So first, I just wanted to start off with the basics. In the last video, I had showed you that you have your very own dashboard, and in the dashboard each week it tells you what you need to do, and as you complete the tasks as directed in the correct order, it unlocks more for you. So I just wanted to go back to the very beginning and let you know that in order to even start with Mindbloom, you will go onto their website and you'll take an assessment. Somebody had asked me about that outside. How do you get in? How do you do it? I wanted to go back to the very beginning to go over that really quickly. You do have to go onto the Mindbloom website and take an assessment. I did this now. It's been a while, but I remember that I think it was something in the neighborhood of 67 questions they ask you. It's a lot of questions, and about your health, your family history, mental health, your state of mind, any type of medications that you're on, stuff like that. And it's still my understanding that in order to be a candidate for ketamine, and that's what this Mindbloom assessment is for, it's the Am I a Candidate? Do I Qualify assessment. I'm pretty sure that you still have to have been on 2 different either anti-anxiety or antidepressant medications in your life, and that they didn't work for you, and your depression and your mental health issues are resistant to the standard types of medication. So I happen to have that. I'm on this imipramine stuff that I've been on forever, and it doesn't do anything, and they tried to go off of that, and I was on something else a long time ago, and that was a nightmare, and it didn't work at all. So I ended up qualifying, and then from there you do get contacted by a clinician that you choose for your state. They will contact you, and also you choose a guide, and the guide is there to help you on your journeys, to help you integrate, to help you unpack what you've been through on your trips, and how to weave it into and apply it to your health progress and your healing. So I did all that. The state that I'm in, there was a couple of different clinicians I could pick. The one I picked was she's a psychiatric nurse practitioner. She's worked as a nurse for 30 years. I seem to really click with her. And then with the guides, you'll see online, there's so many to choose from that Mindbloom has now that are experienced in guiding people through their psychedelic experiences. And the guides have different levels of backgrounds and modalities, so you can pick what you're interested in. Some of the guides are really spiritual and shamanic, and then others are purely medical and scientific, and they have that kind of background. Or some of them are sort of a mix of both. There's men, there's women, there's young, there's old, there's all different types of guides you can pick from. So you really just need to scroll, look at the faces, see what face resonates with you, read their biographies, see what kind of background they have and how it pertains to the mixture that you're most comfortable in, where you'd feel most comfortable. Me personally, I am a spiritual person, but I also appreciate the hard science. And I appreciate data and facts and empirical evidence and somewhat of a medical background. So I ended up finding someone who was perfect for me, and she texts me right away, and the clinician texts me. Then you have appointments. You'll set up an appointment with the clinician. And they're going to ask you some more questions, filling in the blanks after they read your profile of your answers of those 60-some questions. And they're going to decide a dosage for you, and that is a weight-based dose. I guess maybe everything is a weight-based dose. I never really thought of it before, but I had another kind of treatment before when I was sick, and they said, well, we're going to give you a weight-based dose of this medication, and now so is this. So maybe a lot of things are weight-based. But anyway, what they sent me was 300 milligrams. So what 300 milligrams turned out to be was 2 separate lozenges. I think they're also called troches. The word looks like troches, but I think it's pronounced troches. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% on that, but they also call them lozenges. This is what they look like. So they're kind of big, but they're not that big. If you can picture a nickel and a dime, they're bigger than a dime, but smaller than a nickel, I would say. And they're kind of thick. And the word lozenge sort of is deceptive because it's not like a cough drop like you would think of. That's smooth. These are round, thick discs, and they are chalky, and they're a little bit gritty, but they are made to dissolve under your tongue. I was worried that they were going to taste terrible because I had read somewhere on a Reddit thread that from someone who did Mindbloom, they said that they tasted like what they imagined cleaning fluid would taste like. But I was a little freaked out by that, but they really weren't that bad. They did not taste bad. They weren't awesome, but they weren't bad. And you do need to, when it's time, hold those lozenges in your mouth, either under your tongue or in your cheek pads for 7 minutes. 7 minutes. And I was concerned that I would swallow it because one of the things they tell you is do not swallow it. If you swallow it, instead of drifting off and slowly disassociating from yourself, it'll be like shooting out of a cannon into outer space. And I didn't want to shoot out of a cannon, and I didn't want to like lose control that much. So I was afraid that I was going to swallow it, but the advice given to me by both my guide and the clinician was all you need to do is put your head forward. While you're doing that, you just hold, like put your chin to your chest, let your head hang down, the saliva will collect, and then you'll be able to hold that in your mouth, and then after the 7 minutes is up, you spit everything into a cup that you make sure you have ahead of time. Oh, one thing I wanted to clarify from my last video, if you watch the unboxing, my Mindbloom Bloombox video, I had stated in that video incorrectly that you need to wear the blood pressure monitor through the whole session. That's not true. You just have to wear it before the session, and you have to show your guide with the date and the time stamp on the blood pressure monitor that your pressure is below 150/100, which is pretty high anyway, and your heart rate is below 100 beats per minute. Now, oddly, I thought I had this in the bag because I have high blood pressure, but it's controlled. I've been on blood pressure medication for a long time. And so I thought, oh, this isn't going to be a problem. Well, the first session that I was scheduled to have, I actually couldn't proceed because my pressure and my pulse rate were too high, meaning they were over 150 over 100, and my heart was over 100 beats per minute, which is crazy, but it was. You know, on the outside, I didn't feel very nervous. I felt a little nervous because I didn't know what to expect exactly, but I didn't feel like I was freaking out or panicking. But somehow on the inside, my insides were just going bonkers. So I ended up, no matter what we did, my guide was trying to do breathing exercises and relaxation exercises with me to get the pressure down, and it just did not work. So I had to reschedule. And believe it or not, I went back to my doctor and they actually adjusted my medication too. So anyway, that did the trick, and I was able to do the first session. Now, when I say to you I'm talking to my guide and I'm meeting with my clinician, I'm talking about Zoom, all Zoom meetings. And what's really handy is you can even be at work. Like when you have your clinician appointments, they'll talk to you for 20 to 30 minutes. You can just pop out of your work and, you know, maybe run it over to your car. That's what I do. I just meet with my clinician on Zoom, and they will always send you an email in advance, and in that email is the link to that particular person's Zoom waiting room. So sometimes it's the clinician and you just tap the link. Sometimes it's when it's time for your actual session, it's your guide's waiting room. You tap the link and they just come on. For anybody who has not yet done Zoom in this pandemic age, that's how it works. It's really simple. So when it's time for your session, you need to make sure you have that Bloom box with you. There's a part of the Bloom box that I showed you before when I opened it. It has a box in it and the box was empty. That's where you put your medication. Now, you cannot eat 3 hours before the session, and you cannot drink anything 1 hour before the session. And when you first meet with your clinician before your first session, they'll ask you if you would like something for nausea, because sometimes ketamine makes people nauseous. I said sure, so they sent me, I forget what it's called, but it's a little tiny anti-nausea pill, and they sent that to me as well. So you just take that an hour before, you put that under your tongue also, and it dissolves. And that's all that you do. And then when it's time, you go into your Zoom meeting with your guide, you take your pressure right then and there and you show it to them, and they mark it down. And I will tell you, they are stringent. They're not gonna let you proceed if you're over. They play by the rules. And I appreciate that, because that's for your safety. You know, that's keeping me safe, because ketamine can tend to elevate your blood pressure and also elevate your heart rate. So you'll do that. You'll show them the blood pressure reading. They send you a wrist cuff. Now, if you don't have a problem with your blood pressure, a wrist cuff might be fine. But for those of us who have a little higher blood pressure, to begin with, apparently wrist cuffs read higher than the regular arm cuffs do, the upper arms. So I went through 2 wrist cuffs with them because the first one that they sent me didn't work. It was broken, and they were very understanding about it. I told them what didn't work, I showed them, and they just sent me out another one. And I didn't even have to send the first one back. I said I'll send it back, but I mean, it doesn't work anyway, so I guess I'm just gonna throw it away. But that they did send me a second one that did work, but it's a wrist cuff, so I was getting these crazy off the charts readings. So I ended up going out to, I think it was Walgreens, and I bought an upper arm one, and that reads more accurate. And as a matter of fact, when I went to my doctor and she adjusted my medicine, I told her that, you know, I was using a wrist cuff, and she was like, don't use those, use the upper arm. I was like, great. So just a little tidbit there. So what you'll do, they'll tell you that you can, you know, after you've shown your blood pressure and your heart rate, they will tell you that you can proceed.